Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I am Rudy McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. The Holy Father Pope Francis has expressed concern over the devastating course of the war in Ukraine. During his Sunday Angelus, he appealed to the presidents of both Russia and Ukraine to work towards ending the conflict. While imploring Russian President Vladimir Putin to end the spiral of death and violence, the Pope appealed to the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, to be open to what he termed serious peace proposals. The Holy Father said he was deeply saddened by the thousands of victims, especially children, and by the many destructions. He said humanity is once again facing a nuclear threat. Questioning what was yet to happen, the Pope said, "How much blood still has to flow before we understand that war is never a solution, but only destruction." Separately, Pope Francis has offered prayers for the victims of Hurricane Ian in Cuba and in the US state of Florida. At least 50 deaths have been confirmed since Hurricane Ian lashed Florida's Gulf Coast on Wednesday. Florida had the most fatalities and many were left without a home. 11 more deaths have been reported by state officials in neighbouring Cuba. The storm's death toll is rising and communities are reeling from the devastation as search and rescue efforts continue in these areas. The Pontiff also prayed for those who died or were injured in a soccer stadium stampede in Indonesia. In the country, at least 125 people died in a stampede at Malang's Kanjuruhan Stadium in East Java. About 180 others were injured. A new law in the American state of Virginia ensures that parents will be notified if their child is going to be exposed to sexually explicit content in public schools. They will be allowed to review such materials and be given the option of an alternative. Virginia has been host to conflict between parents and school boards on this issue. Parents have to give prior notice if schools intend to use any materials with sexually explicit content. This is defined as any description, picture, photograph, drawing, motion picture film, digital image, or similar visual representation depicting sexual acts. Officials with the Virginia Department of Education said school boards have until January to adopt the regulations. The Act reflects legislative confidence in parents to make appropriate decisions as to whether or not their child should be allowed access to instructional material containing sexually explicit content. Applauding the pro-life move by two Republican senators, Archbishop Lori of Baltimore pledged solidarity with the proposed nationwide 15-week abortion ban. Archbishop Lori, who chairs the US Bishops' Conference Committee on Pro-Life Activities, said the proposed bill will be a point to unite the country in spite of diverse opinions on abortion. The Protecting Pain-Capable Unborn Children from Late-Term Abortions Act was introduced by South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham and New Jersey Senator Chris Smith on September the 13th. The prelate said all elected officials, including federally elected members of Congress, now have the opportunity to protect unborn human life and should rise to the occasion. The proposed legislation aims to ban abortions after 15 weeks of gestation, with exceptions in cases of rape, incest, or when the mother's life is at risk. It is the most significant step by the Republicans following the overturning of Roe v. Wade, removing the constitutionality of abortions in America. On Saturday, October the 1st, Catholic faithful gathered to fast and to pray at the 30th Annual International Week of Prayer and Fasting at the National Basilica in Washington, D.C. The event marked the beginning of the special week. Priests, parishes, communities, schools and prayer groups are taking part in the initiative. This year's event's theme is the Eucharist, Our Lady, and Heaven's Weapons to Defeat Evil. As part of the prayer and fasting of the week, the faithful gathered will pray for 5 intentions. Those are the conversion of all peoples, building a culture of life, defending the sanctity of marriage, God's mercy, and priests and vocations. In addition, there will also be a 3-day virtual conference from October the 3rd. On October the 9th, the initiative will conclude with a national Rosary rally at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. In Brazil, where more than 99% of votes were counted on Sunday evening, results show that left-wing candidate and former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has a slight lead over incumbent President and right-wing leader Jair Bolsonaro. However, this lead is not enough to cross the threshold to victory. It appears that the race for the presidency will lead to a second round, as no candidate has attained a 50% majority in the polls that witnessed a huge turnout in Brazil. As per the latest count, Lula is ahead with 48.4% of the votes, compared to Bolsonaro, who has 43.2%. While speaking to reporters in Sao Paulo on Sunday night, the left-wing leader expressed confidence in winning the runoff vote on October the 30th. The former president was found guilty of corruption and money laundering in 2017 and served 2 years in jail. However, in March 2021, the Supreme Court annulled the conviction and cleared Lula's way to contest the presidency. A Hong Kong court has said that the media mogul Jimmy Lai cannot be represented by a British lawyer during his upcoming trial. High Court Judge Alex Lee said the government and the City Bar Association opposed Jimmy Lai's request to be represented by a London lawyer. A prominent critic of the Chinese Communist Party, 74-year-old Mr. Lai was arrested on August the 10th in 2020 by Hong Kong police for violating the country's new national security law. A Catholic and a philanthropist, Lai's Apple Daily newspaper openly criticised the Chinese regime and gave wide coverage to the 2019 pro-democracy agitations. Lai and executives of Apple Daily are being prosecuted for collusion with foreign forces. The Hong Kong government also froze the assets of the paper, forcing it to close down. In the West African nation of Burkina Faso, the new military junta, which seized power, said on Sunday that the situation in the country is now under control. This came after troops fired tear gas at crowds pelting rocks outside the French embassy in the capital Ouagadougou. Those supporting the leader of the coup assembled outside the embassy, accusing the deposed military chief Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba of hiding in a French base to plan a counter-offensive. Military spokesperson Captain Kinwensida Farouk Azaria Sorgo said on national television that the situation was under control and order is being restored. He appeared on television flanked by coup leader Captain Ibrahim Traoré and other officers. Mr. Sorgo appealed to civilians to refrain from any acts of violence and vandalism. Damiba came into power in January in a coup d'etat, only to be toppled last Friday by junior officers. They accuse him of failing to tackle attacks from outfits linked to the Islamic State and to Al-Qaeda. Hundreds of thousands of children will participate in an annual prayer campaign named the 1 Million Children Praying Rosary, inviting children across the globe. Pontifical Charity Aid to the Church in Need has informed that the annual Rosary campaign will begin on October the 18th. ACN's website says over 120,000 children have already registered for the campaign, encouraging children and youth to turn to the Lord for peace to prevail and unity in the world. ACN has urged the participation of families, kindergartens, schools and churches. The prayer campaign was conceived in Venezuela in 2005, when several women felt Our Lady's presence when children prayed the Rosary at a roadside shrine. After that, it spread swiftly all over the world with ACN's help. October is especially significant to the Church, as it is the month of the Rosary. The Children's Rosary takes place on October the 18th, the day the Church commemorates the feast of St. Luke, the Evangelist. After a century-long wait, a 1,000-year-old handwritten book of Gospels was returned last Thursday to the Greek monastery from where it was stolen. CNN has reported that it was the Icosiphoenissa manuscript 220, looted during World War I, that was returned to the Kosinitsa monastery in northern Greece. It was the Museum of the Bible in the United States which donated it to the monastery. The museum came to possess the ancient manuscript in 2014 after it was donated by the Green Collection. Oklahoma City-based Green Collection purchased the manuscript in 2011 during a Christie's auction. In 2015, the Greek Orthodox Church asked several American institutions having Kosinitsa manuscripts to voluntarily return them. It was through the efforts of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America that the Icosiphonica manuscript was finally returned to the monastery. It is presumed that the manuscript was stolen by invading Bulgarian troops during the First World War, along with 400 other priceless texts. Christians in the Nineveh plains of Iraq are rejoicing over the ongoing restoration of the Mar Behnam and Marthsara church, which was destroyed by the Islamic State militants during their occupation. One of the most important places of worship for the Chaldean, Syriac and Assyrian believers, this church will be fully restored by October next year. Renovation work is being funded by Pontifical Charity Aid to the church in need. Its interiors are done, and now work is going on in the exterior part of the centuries-old church. During the ISIS occupation, the church towers were destroyed with explosives. However, the faithful who returned from the autonomous Kurdish region after the rebels were defeated resumed their prayer inside the damaged church. Parish priest Father Boutros Sheto said that the church's restoration fosters the believers' hope to return to their homeland. In Taliban-ruled Afghanistan, the capital Kabul witnessed a protest march by women during the weekend. Women took to the streets to voice their protest against the suicide bomb blast on Friday at a school, in which dozens of students were killed or wounded. The blast took place in the Dasht-e-Barchi district of West Kabul. The protesters called on the United Nations not to remain silent and to hear their issue. Defying the diktat of the Taliban, protesting women marched from the Pol-e-Sokta area of the capital to the Muhammad Ali Jinnah Hospital. The explosion at the school took place when hundreds of students were doing a practice test ahead of an entrance exam for university admission. The area is home to the Shiite Hazara minority, which is facing persecution. The UN mission said in a statement that 43 students were killed and 83 others were wounded. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again tomorrow for more. And remember, you can also visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.